love that. And then he struts. Thursday lunchtime, Spencer Oliver is in our midst as we embark on some boxing for the next hour. Spencer Oliver, good afternoon to you. Spencer, I've got to say to you, we're just saying in the break, Adeleye, Jamie TKV, Cameron Whittaker, Eubank Jr., Benn. This is some period of boxing, isn't it?
It certainly is, and it's all happening here in England, which is great news for the fans as well. But some big fights coming up for sure.
Absolutely. Simon, we were talking about David Adeleye, Jamie TKV. Will it be rescheduled? Will it be ordered to a rematch by the British Boxing Board of Control? They had a meeting yesterday, as we reported on this very show. Simon reacted to it then when Robert Smith was on the show, and indeed that fight has been ordered. There will be a rematch. I'm delighted to say Jamie TKV's promoter Ben Shalom joins us live. Ben, you've got what you wanted here, and Jamie's got what he's wanted, right?
Sort of. I think we knew that they were going to have to do something. I think from our perspective, we expected a no contest to be ruled. We don't think Jamie should have a loss on his record. We don't think David Adeleye should necessarily be the champion after that. So the details are still, let's see what happens. You know, is it going to be ordered as a 50-50? Is David still the champion? Or is he the champion? That's what we were hoping for clarity from. And we believe it should have been ruled a no contest. You know, if they're ordering an immediate rematch, you're sort of accepting liability that the ref was in the wrong. And a no contest would go hand in hand with that.
Yeah, Ben, I understand the British Boxing Board of Control and the stewards there ruled it an immediate rematch, but that no contest doesn't seem to be happening. I think that will stand. David will become the British champion, he is the British champion, and you're in that situation now. But it's great to get that opportunity again, surely.
No, it is. It is. I guess from our perspective, it had to be ordered again. Part of us was thinking that it should be a disqualification. We were thinking at the very least it would be a no contest. Of course, the rematch is the natural fight to happen next, and I think Jamie will do what he did in the first fight, and I think he'll win the fight. So it's exciting times for Jamie TKV. He's never had this amount of publicity, this amount of exposure. It's been a huge talking point across boxing. So in that respect, it's been fantastic for his career, and now we can look forward to a fight that we're extremely confident with.
Okay, Ben, closer in terms of what's coming up. Easter Sunday, Ben Whittaker, your fighter, goes in again to take on Liam Cameron in Birmingham, 6 months on from the bizarre ending to the first fight, when, of course, both men fell over the ropes and Whittaker was unable to continue because of an injury. Now they go again, but there's been all sorts of conjecture as to whether it's 10 rounds or 12 rounds. This was Liam Cameron on that subject last week.
We've signed for a 12-round fight, and they're trying to push it for a 10-rounder, doing everything they can, and I'm not budging. I'm having a 12-round fight, and this is what I tried to do it on. Gloves are off. They won't let me speak about it, and on Sky Sports, they didn't air my interview. This is the problem we're having, is that I've signed a 12-round contract fight. When I was signing contract, I thought it couldn't barely get through 5 rounds. This were weird. So like a couple of weeks went by and like they tried to send another contract for a 10-rounder. So that shows me the confidence levels. I'm ready for 15 rounds.
Well, Ben Shalom is with us live. Ben, what is it, 10 or 12?
It's a 10-round fight, Jim. I think, look, I've said yesterday, I think I was on the stomping ground. In the first instance, on one of the paperwork, there was an admin error in the office, and to be honest, it wasn't a couple of weeks. I think it was a couple of days when it was noticed, and to be honest, as sensible partners, I thought it'd be all worked out, and it seemed like it was getting worked out, and they wanted extra money and this and compensation, whatever it was, and we agreed to that, and we sort of felt like we moved on from that situation since Liam's interview. I've spoken to George Warren and myself, and George had agreed the terms of what gets it done. And to be honest,
it's just been in the last hour. Liam Cameron's trainer is saying it's 12 rounds.
Look, they are what's happening with, and and I've been in the situation a few times. They're agreeing something, and then looking to draw it out as long as possible, and that's what's happened now a couple of times. And we know what's going on. They want to play games. They want to mess around. I think Liam's being told ultimately what to say. Well, it's a 10-round fight, and I agreed that in writing last week. We actually were demanded to make which was a ridiculous request to make a payment into the board and lodge the payment last week. We had a deadline of last week. We did that. And so at the end of the day, it's a 10-round fight. It's always been the rematch. It's always been exactly the same as the first fight. They know that. And this is the Ben Whittaker show. And if they don't want the fight, then just say.
Well, I mean,
just pull out.
At this end,
at the end of the
at this end, Ben, Spencer's with me, Simon's with me, both of them smiling from ear to ear. What's your take on all of this?
Well, I think that Ben and Boxer have made fools of themselves, Ben. I think if you've got them to sign a 12-round agreement because there's an admin error in your business, then they've signed a 12-round fight. And now, if he's got a cooling off period inside the contract, which enables them to renegotiate, then what was the contract for in the first place? And if you then go out and make a noise, if you go and make a noise about it, you lose on both fronts. You lose on the front that you've got bad administration, and now you lose on the front that Ben Whittaker doesn't fancy a 12-round fight.
It's nothing to do with that. Ben Whittaker has been preparing for a 10-round fight.
But if you sign a contract, Ben,
and say, oh,
if you sign a contract for 12 rounds, which is bad administration from your end.
Yeah, but Simon, subsequently that has been dealt with, and that's been dealt with already. That's been dealt with in writing, and we've agreed every term that they've asked for. And Ben, so that's where it's at.
Ben, I think from a fighter's perspective, I think that if he's been training for a 10-round fight, thinking that it was the 10 rounds, why wouldn't he go into this 12-round fight? Because there's not much difference in that training process. I've done that over 10, I've done it over 12, so I do understand that. So if he's got confidence in his own ability to take it over 12, surely he would take it.
To be honest, we not even had that conversation with Ben Whittaker because it was a situation that we felt was on our end between Boxer and Queensberry, nothing to do with him. And so we've looked to resolve that and have resolved it, and that's where we'd left it. So he's training for a 10-round fight. He's been training for a 10-round fight for 8 weeks. And to be honest, I don't think he's even aware of this.
But do you accept? Well, of course, he's aware of it, Ben. He's not living under a stone, is he? I mean, do you accept that? Do you accept the fact that if you've got him to sign a 12-round contract, I'm assuming he signed it, Ben?
No. This is a contract between Boxer and
So Ben Whittaker hasn't signed the contract.
He's not signed a contract for 12 rounds. He's not on. They're not on the same contract. We have a contract between Boxer and Queensberry for Liam's services, which we subsequently agreed,
which you signed on his behalf,
to change from 12 to 10.
So as far as you're concerned, it's a moot point. The fact that the optics.
It's an irrelevant. Look, they're trying to make a point out.
But the optics are wrong, Ben. I'm not on their side of your side in this instance. I get accused of being on your side a lot, but the optics are wrong. You've got a fight contract that's been signed for 12, which is bad admin, and now you've got a fighter that doesn't want to fight a 12-round fight, so you lose again. So people can get to parody you on two fronts.
We've not got a fighter that doesn't want to fight for 12 rounds. He's a fighter that's trained for 10 rounds and prepared for a rematch that was always a 10 round. He's also the significant A side in the fight. Ultimately, our mistake is, and I've put my hands up yesterday, our mistake, which is an expensive mistake and has cost me money, right? I can't get away from that. I'm holding my hands up to that. It's nothing to do with Ben Whittaker. Absolutely nothing to do with that. And look, Queensberry want to have fun and make a laugh of it in the media. That's what this is. But ultimately, it has been dealt with. And if they don't want the fight, then all they have to do is say that. You know, we've done what we can now. We've agreed to everything that they want. We made every demand that they wanted. We made the payment that they wanted. And that's it.
Okay. Ben Shalom, thank you so much. Seems a bit of a mess, doesn't it?
It does seem a mess. Listen, I think that if they've made a mistake from their side, and 10 rounds, 12 rounds, whatever it is, if you've got that confidence, you're just going to go through with a fight. But that's where you're at the moment. It's not like it's the first time he's done 10 rounds. He's done 3 10 rounds before.
I mean, in fairness to Ben Shalom, he knows that they've dropped a ball, so he's had to pony up the money to be able to resolve it. So Liam Cameron has got. Don't forget, Liam Cameron was running around with respect, trying to get various promoters to pay him as much money as possible. Got a deal with
agree.
Ben Shalom, then use that deal to leverage it into Frank Warren to get more money. Now he's got a win, which is
Smart
going to
business.
So he's won out of people's inefficiencies.
Here's the bottom line, Simon. Who wins the fight?
I think Ben Whittaker. I think he'll punch his head in. No, I don't think he'll knock him out, but I think he'll punch his head off. Whereas Spencer thinks Liam Cameron will win.
I think Liam Cameron starts favourite. I'm not saying that he wins. I think he does start favourite going into this one because of this situation which is going on. Ben Shalom says that Whittaker is unaware of this.
Right.
10 rounds, 12 rounds. Listen, if I'm the fighter and I'm getting that opportunity to go over that old ground, remember that all the eyeballs are on Ben Whittaker here. He was the one that went out the ring and couldn't continue. Could he have? Only he knows this one.
Right.
So why not 10, 12? Just get the fight on.
Well, the narrative is very simple, isn't it? We've sat here debating whether Ben Whittaker swallowed this fight, right? And people have been debating it, and people have got various opinions. Now you've got another narrative being spun out that he don't fancy a 12-round fight. So there's no win here. Ben Whittaker's got to go in there and put on a pretty impressive performance.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are going to be pecking away at him.
Yeah, exactly. Pecking away takes me to Easter Sunday while we're all rolling our eggs and the chicks are running around. Whittaker and Cameron will go again. Not over 12 rounds, but 10 rounds. And it's live in talkSPORT. Much more coming up. We're talking boxing this Thursday with Spencer Oliver, and of course there is a massive fight on the horizon. Conor Benn will take on Chris Eubank Jr. in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that is later this month, on the 26th of this month to be precise. We're just over 2 weeks away from it, and the build-up is very much up and running. Of that there is no doubt. I'm delighted to say, alongside Simon, myself and Spencer this lunchtime, we've gone to a man who, when it comes to beating Ben, Nigel Benn, when it comes to beating Eubank, Chris Eubank Sr., well, he did both of those things. Because Steve Collins jumped up in weight way back in 1994 and became the first man to defeat Chris Eubank in a thriller of a 2-fight series. And he followed that up with 2 wins over Nigel Benn. If anyone can talk about Eubank Benn related matters, it is Steve Collins. And Steve, I'm delighted to say, is going to be featuring in talkSPORT's build-up to the big fight on the 26th of this month. And Steve Collins joins us live. Steve, good afternoon, mate.
Good afternoon.
Great to speak to you. Spencer's with me, so too is Simon. You probably never tire of hearing that you are the man who didn't only beat Nigel Benn, that you beat Chris Eubank Sr. I mean, it must be music to your ears.
I don't really think about it. I kind of forget it was me because it's so long ago. And right now I'm so busy and there's so many things on my mind that I haven't got time to think about it. But a situation like this, it's great because it reminds people of what happened. And also the younger generation who weren't even born, who are not even that young now, will hear about it for the first time. So it's nice to hear it. When you've won, it's always good to hear about it, you know.
I tell you what, Steve, Spencer's itching to ask you a few questions of that, I'm quite sure. Is there anything wrong building a fight on the legacy of the past?
The only thing that's wrong here is my son Stevie Jr. is retired. If he was still boxing, I would have put him in against the winner, and maybe history could have repeated itself again. Unfortunately, my other son Luke, who boxes amateur, he's 6'3" and weighs 15 stone. He can never get down to the weight. But it would have been nice if my son Stevie was still active, and he could have jumped on the bandwagon and made himself some money, because he's got kids now and he's got a family.
That would have been something.
And he's married.
Wouldn't it have been? I mean, could you imagine that? Like, none of us ever expected, Nigel Benn's son and Chris Eubank Senior's son to be boxing. It was a fantasy fight, really, that has become a reality. And could you imagine throwing your son in there as well, Steve? But would you have ever expected this move on 35 years from them amazing times? Probably the best times in British boxing, really, when you lot were boxing.
Well, no, we didn't expect it. It's great. It's happening. It's great that the sons are keeping the legacies going. And it certainly created a lot of interest, but it's also reviving our careers as well. Because these two guys are fighting now 35 years on from when we fought. People are now talking about our careers. And what it does then is it gets the phones ringing again, and it gets the jobs coming in again. Not that I have time to do them, but it's always nice to know they're there.
What are you up to at the moment, Steve? I mean, what's your day-to-day thing?
Right, this morning, I have an issue this morning because my tractor broke down last week and I didn't finish cutting the hedges. And now because it's in the beginning of April, you're not allowed to cut hedges because it's the nesting season. So I've quite a bit of hedging to cut. And unfortunately, because you can't do it by tractor now, I have to do it all by hand. So I'm really busy and I'm on the phone talking to you when I should be out cutting hedges with a hand trimmer, not a tractor, because not allowed to use tractors now because the season's over.
Listen, Steve, the hedges can
That's
wait
what's
for a
going on in
second.
my exciting life, you know.
That's
I mean,
fine,
Chris
though.
Eubank and Nigel Benn, they're on TV, they're all over the world talking about this big fight coming off of their sons. I'm ringing my son and saying, when are you coming home from work to help me on the land? That's my life, you know.
The hedging can wait. And what do you make of some of the build-up and some of the antics we've seen in the build-up to Eubank Jr. against Ben? In your time, Steve, we saw the hypnotist was brought in. There was all sorts of shenanigans going on. On this occasion, you no doubt saw the egg slap. Eubank Jr. slapping the egg right into the mush of Conor Benn. And of course, thereafter, there was absolute chaos. We're watching it now go out live on YouTube. Absolute chaos. Are those kind of antics really needed?
Well, I just watched it. First of all, I think Eubank done it to make a point with the egg, because we all know what happened with the egg. Conor ate eggs that were tainted, allegedly, and they therefore his drug test, he failed.
Failing the drugs test, yeah.
So, you know, it's part of the build-up. Eubank was fun. I'm a very big supporter of British Boxing Board of Control. I know a lot of guys have worked there, and I think it's a great organisation. And I believe they fined him £100,000 for that action. I think that's a bit unfair. I think it's a big fine. I think they should give him a fine, a slap on the wrist, and an apology. I think charging him 100 grand for that is it's a bit steep, and I don't really agree with that. Although I do support them in a lot of the decisions they make, I kind of think that one's a bit hard, and I think they should retract that and just give him a slap on the wrist, charge him a few bob, and just get on with it, because it's all part of the build-up. He didn't punch him, didn't do anything crazy, he didn't headbutt him. He hit him with an egg, to wind him up, I think.
Steve, if Eubank Senior hit you with an egg, what would you have done?
I'd have picked it up and swam with it, probably ate it. Back in the day, we didn't have a lot. We were hungry,
But listen, I think that society is to blame for this now, though, isn't it? It's like this is the razzmatazz that comes with boxing. It's slightly different. I mean, even going back in your day, when you think of people like Herbie Hyde when he boxed Michael Benn, there was no we weren't talking about egg slapping them. We were talking about proper fisticuffs. They went toe to toe, and it happened more recently with Derek Chisora when he boxed Klitschko, and David Haygate crashed the press conferences. So it is something that happens, and it is something that sells.
Well, going toe to toe and punching and attacking each other, that's out of order. That's assaulting the person. I know it hit someone in the ears, but I don't believe that was his intention. I think it was to make a point and kind of wind up Conor. If they start punching each other, definitely real hesitation. Hit him with the big fine, but the egg thing was it was a stupid plot, and it wasn't like a fight. He didn't punch my head, but so I don't agree with the fine. I think it's a bit tough, but I'm not going to get involved in that. What I will say is it's a genuine fight, and I'm actually looking forward to it, because I can't pick a winner. And what appeals to me, we don't get enough of today in boxing, is a big fight that everyone's tuning in to see, that we can't really pick a winner, because we can argue why both guys have the advantage or disadvantage in this bout.
That's interesting, Steve. So you're saying you're looking forward to it, etc. Simon here to my left can't find a way of buying into the fight. You can't get. You're not that fired up about it, are you, Simon?
Well, no, I understand Steve's point, but I'm being a little bit pious, because I look at these two fighters and I think Conor Benn hasn't fought anyone of any significance. He should be fighting at a weight class that's commensurate with the weight class he's in. Chris Eubank is forever telling us he's going to fight for a world title, and yet we've got two guys on the back of their father's legacies getting huge amounts of money for a fight that ultimately I don't think reflects the value. I look at guys like Steve Collins and Chris Eubank Senior and Nigel Benn and the careers that they had. These guys are going to earn in one night probably what Chris and Steve earned in their entire careers. And I find that difficult to accept. And then you've got all the other bits, Steve, which is the drug tests that have failed and things like that. And I find it a little bit unpalatable, mate.
I absolutely agree with you and everything you're saying. I totally agree with you. But it's happening, so you have to take a step back and simplify it. I'm simplified by saying we have two young guys here who are going to go at it. You know, they're both limited. You know, for whatever reason, yeah, maybe they started young, or maybe they hadn't been, you know, educated, had the fights they could have had. But they're both limited, but they're both quite. It's an even match. It's two guys who are young, in their prime, who want to get it on. There's no great advantage to either guy. To me, what makes a great fight is a great match. And because it's a great match, and the pressure they're on because of the fathers' legacies and the fact that under the limelight, it's a pressure fight. Yes, we can say they haven't beaten anybody great in their careers. They have lost at a certain level. Eubank lost a certain level, you know. But he's fighting. It's a good match, and you know, two horses make a good race.
Steve, they're very much they're very much their father's sons, carbon copies of their fathers, and you know about mindsets of fighters and whatnot, and you know how Nigel Benn was. You beat Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Senior as well. You know, they are very much the same as their fathers, and do you think that will come into it in this contest? You know, it is all about the psychological battle, who has that will to win, and that's how I see it with these two.
No, yeah. They really are carbon copies of their dads, definitely. Yeah, you know, Nigel Benn Senior was raw, and when he hit, he hurt. He was dangerous, and Chris Eubank Senior was clever and was very durable. So the two sons are a reflection of their fathers. So it's and the dads are great fights. Yeah. I personally thought that Nigel won one of those fights. But that's neither here nor there. Now it's history. So
Steve, just to finish with, if you're edging towards one fighter going into this in the 26, which one is it?
Do you know what I'm going to say? Yeah, I think Eubank could win it until Ben hits him.
Fair enough. Steve Collins, we look forward to you getting involved in the build-up to the big fight. In the meantime, get out there and get into these hedges, because my God, they need done, mate.
It's going to start raining next week, so I'm under pressure.
There you go for it. Steve, thanks for being with us at this lunchtime. Steve Collins, who not only beat Nigel Benn, beat Eubank Senior, as Spencer says, as well. We're at 12:30. Thursday lunchtime, we're talking boxing. Simon, myself, alongside Spencer, Oliver. All the big names want to join us. One just has. Steve Collins, conqueror of Chris Eubank Senior, conqueror of Nigel Benn in the past. Steve Collins going to be part of the build-up with talkSPORT to that massive fight between Eubank and Benn. Eubank Jr. against Benn, of course, on the 26th of this month in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And the big names continue to join us. Former WBC Cruiserweight champion Tony Bellew is live with us this lunchtime. Tony, good afternoon, mate.
How's it going, champ?
Very good indeed. For those watching on YouTube and your smart TV, you can see Tony for yourselves. He has joined us live. Listen, Steve Collins was saying, yeah, how can you not buy into Eubank Jr. Benn? Because the momentum is very much underway now as we go towards the 26th of this month. Where are you at with it? I spoke to you the other day in the BetMGM lineup show. Where are you at with it now in your mind, Tony?
I'm excited, but it's madness. It's crazy. It's taken over the country a little bit, and it's done that because it's crossed over commercially. It's huge. It's absolutely huge because every era and every different type of generation buys into it, Jim, and that's what makes it big. The grandmothers in the bingo walls are talking about it. When he slaps an egg off the side of his head, which I don't like and I think is a bit dangerous and stupid, it takes it to another level commercially. And like I said, it's out of control, if I'm being totally honest. God help it fight week, because I think the whole country's just going to be engulfed in it. I think it'll be on the front page and the back page of every paper. And it's huge, because of the legacy and the name that their fathers carried, and now they've actually took it themselves to another personal level. Tony, what's gone on with the whole drama around it all, in my opinion.
Tony, rewind 35 years when their fathers did fight. It was huge. It was on terrestrial TV, and it was a national thing. It was a really big thing. Can this fight be as big as that, or even bigger, do you think?
I think from a commercial standpoint, of course it can, Sven. I mean, I'm not naive and stupid enough. It's never going to get the viewing figures that the fathers got, because in them days it was on ITV or BBC or whatever it was on. It was on, terrestrial TV. But actual people talking about it 100%. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely massive. You've got 135,000 people spent on a waiting list for a stadium that holds 80,000 people, tops or 75,000 people. There's 135,000 people waiting to snap up any spare tickets, which is just insane. It's lunacy, but I get it. People buy into it. It's basically made it a soap opera. That's what it's been between these two. It's just been one thing after another after another, and I just hope the fight lives up to all expectation. I think it will. I think they're gonna go in there, and it's gonna be no holds barred. They're gonna literally. I just hope these two don't see each other before the fight comes. I wouldn't like these two to see each other in the street or bump into each other shopping around London or whatever. I think it's that volatile. It could spill over.
Tony, Simon's alongside us, of course. Do you think the closer it gets, Simon, more and more and more people, and maybe yourself, will buy into it?
Oh, I think loads of people buy into it, and I fully understand the reasons why they will. And when everyone's got to choose what they like and what they don't like. I have my reasons for not being particularly engaged in this fight. I've said it consistently. Nothing's changed. I can't be a hypocrite and say, oh, hello, I can have a ticket, can I? I'll come along now after I've trashed this fight for the last 2 years. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to miss out on a spectacular evening of British boxing in terms of the atmosphere, the environment. I've seen British boxing. I've been to great big fights. I know what they look like. This will have a different dynamic about it. I like to see the best versus the best. I don't think they're the best in their classes. I don't think they're the best versions of their family themselves. And I think they're very fortunate boys to be getting paid a lot of money. I don't begrudge people earning money. I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
There's so many dynamics about this fight that I don't admire.
Do you agree with that, Tony? That you don't begrudge these guys getting the money they're getting?
No, I agree with what Simon's just said, 100%. And listen, neither of these boys are the fathers. But, no fighter in the country's the fathers, if I'm being totally honest. No fighter would beat the fathers in the primes in the country at the moment. I understand what Simon... Simon, deep down, he'd want to be there, but he doesn't want to... He's not going to backtrack, and he shouldn't. He's stuck to his principles regarding this fight, and he's right to. He's got every right to. That's his right to do that. But it doesn't change what the fight is for anyone or everyone. And it's huge, Jim. Listen, I'm the biggest fan of both the fathers. Take away the personality and whatever. I'm of that era that idolised these two fighters, that wanted to be like them. And I understand and get it. Now, I'm friends with Conor. I've known him a long time, just before he got into professional boxing. He's a lovely young man. He's a lovely kid. I'm not the greatest fan of Chris Eubank Jr., but I tell you what, I admire the control the boy has over things. I must admit, I mean, the boy's in such control when it comes to press comments. He's playing it like he's the orchestra, and he's the guy at the front. He's playing them all.
He's conducting it.
And he's doing exactly what he wants when he wants. But like I said before, this fight is astronomical. It's huge. I genuinely end up thinking it'll be one of the biggest fights to ever take place in this country.
Where does the loser go, Tony, after it?
Oh, well, I think, if I'm being brutally honest, there's only pride to lose for Conor Benn. I mean, for Chris Eubank Jr., he's got everything to lose. If he gets beat or knocked out off a welterweight, and he's a middleweight / super middleweight, then he is going to be in a world of trouble. Really is. It really is. But like I said before, it's egos, it's pride at stake, it's family names, and I mean, ultimately, let's all just be brutally honest. This is happening because of the money is astronomical.
Yeah. Are you surprised, Tony, that Eubank Jr. hasn't become a world champion before now?
Which world champion would he beat, Jim?
He's got the point.
Is he world level?
Which world champion would he beat, Jim? He's faced 2 or 3, and he's been spanked on every occasion. And listen, these two, let's be brutally honest, these two had the opportunity to face for a world title. Conor could have fought Barrios, and Eubank Jr. could have fought Lara. And if the clever people around them have just gone to them, listen, hey, hold your jets here. This is ridiculous. Why do you want to go and fight for a world title? And you could get beat. You could lose, get beat up,
right?
Really bad,
right?
When you could face each other. And let me tell you, them world titles will still be there after they've faced each other, depending on how they lose, to be honest. I mean, like I said, there's so much more to lose for Eubank Jr. than there is for Conor. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the only reason Eubank Jr. will win is because of size, because it's not. This is a fight, in my opinion, of two halves. The first 6 rounds will belong to Conor Benn. He will not be able to keep Conor Benn off for 6 rounds. If he is able to absorb what Conor Benn is able to dish out for 6 rounds, the fight then turns in his favour. Because the second 6, that's when size does come into play. That's when I don't think Chris Eubank Jr. is the best boxer. I actually think he's a better fighter than he is a boxer. Technically, he's not very good. I don't know where he gets off on thinking he's the second coming of Roy Jones Jr. because he's not. And as for Conor, he knows what he is. He goes in and he lets his hands go. And he's reckless and he's wild and he can be explosive and dynamic. All of them things he's going to need in this fight, Chris Eubank Jr. And he's going to need a little bit more as well. He's going to have to be rough, rugged, and he's not going to be able to stop and let up. I think his only chance is winning in the first 6 rounds, if I'm being totally honest. And I think Eubank really comes into play after 6 rounds. I think that's when, if he can wear him down and get rid of him in the back six.
Tony, we're running out of time in the 30 or so seconds. No, not at all. No, we're delighted you've joined us. Joe Joyce and his future. There's been a lot of chat about that. And of course, he loses to Filip Hrgović. Many are saying, from Joe's point of view, let's hope it's time up for him.
People are jumping on the bandwagon that I spoke about 18 months ago, Jim. When he fought Zhilei Zhang for the first time, I cried and whinged to everyone on air, on TV, and interviews that I've done. Joe Joyce's greatest attribute has always been his resilience and his durability. And I told anyone who'd listened, the minute that goes, that boy is an accident waiting to happen. And bear in mind, I like Joe Joyce. I think the world of the lad, but he shouldn't be anywhere near a boxing ring. An interview came out before the fight, and it was taken down from social media immediately because the backlash it got. The interview lasted a couple of minutes, and Joe couldn't string more than a couple of sentences together. Joe Joyce has been a fantastic fighter. He's been a phenomenal amateur. This guy could have been an Olympic gold medal. You know, I think he deserved it, from being totally honest, against Tony Yoka in that final, but he didn't get it. He's been an amazing fighter, but understand that once that durability goes, that's the end of you. Once your greatest asset goes as a fighter, or your greatest attribute, that's you done. And that was, I'm sorry to say, his greatest attribute. He could absorb anything. When he was getting knocked down by the likes of Derek Chisora, folded by Zhilei Zhang, it's got to be over. Promoters should not be putting them on. In my opinion, it's really, really worrying, Jim. I don't want to see a casualty. I don't want to see anything bad happen to that, because and you know what? Here's the saddest part. He's a really bright individual. He's smart. He's got so much ability that other fighters don't actually have. He's got a brain. So I want to see him use it and go on and do something else. I really do. I wish him the very best, and I hope he stays safe. Lovely, lovely man.
Tony, thank you so much for being with us this lunchtime.
Always a pleasure, lads. Thank you very much. You do a great job. And listen, before I go, Si, all the best, my mate. Spen, all the best. And up the bloody toffees, boy.
He got it in. Evertonian to the very end. Tony Bellew with us live. It is Jim White, Spencer Oliver and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT, courtesy of Selco. It's where the trade goes. Many fight fans reacting to the chat there with Tony Bellew and agreeing, especially 100% agreeing on his assessment of the Joe Joyce situation. We might get to that before we leave today. On Eubank Jr., Ben Spencer, he's very close to Conor and says it's going to be a question of Eubank keeping Ben off him for the first 6 rounds, and then we'll see what happens thereafter. You go with that?
Absolutely. I think his assessment of that was spot on. I think that's where Conor Benn's dangerous in those first 6 rounds. He's going to come out like a bull in a china shop. That is a fact. You know, there's going to be a lot of emotions running high. And, you know, with that stadium fight as well, he's going to come out and start very, very fast. Eubank Jr., you know, has to start and he has to be aware of himself early on. But size will play a part in those later rounds. When Eubank Jr., who's got that experience over that longer distance and can push on. So, yes, it's a fantastic fight for all those reasons, but great breakdown.
He said a lot of things in the last 15 minutes, Simon. One, and it stood out with me, you'd secretly love to go to Ben Eubank, but because you have your reasons for doing it, you dismissed it from the word go. you can't go, you won't go.
I don't think anyone cares whether I go or not. But what I did think was what I did think was Tony was brilliant in that summation. You know, that's what you sit back and listen to someone talking about the game, describing it in a way that people can listen to and making it entertaining. That was a brilliant summation of the Eubank Ben fight, the reasons for it, and also the observations behind Joe Joyce and what he thinks of that.
What did you make of that?
Of what he says?
Yeah.
Well,
I think, my God, he was honest to the last word.
Look, I think it's not the promoter's responsibility to tell the fighter what to do. It's the promoter's responsibility and the moral obligation to give him his view. The fighter's going to make his choices. And then if he wants to fight, then the promoter can hold his hands up in an idealistic world and say, I'm not prepared to promote you. But it won't work that way. I think that Joe Joyce...
It should work that way.
Well, yes and no. If the fighter...
The promoter and the manager should be saying,
you can make that
no.
You can make that argument about Derek Chisora. And Derek Chisora is of sound body and mind. He makes his own decisions in life. He's a grown adult. He can make his own decisions. If he's medically sound, Joe Joyce, and wants to fight, then who is anyone to say that you shouldn't? It's up to the fighter. You can get what the moral argument is, should the promoter tell him the truth? And I'm sure that Frank will. We've had this discussion. Joe Joyce was getting hit far too many times. It was uncomfortable to watch. He was always getting hit back in the day. But once upon a time, he was able to take those shots and come back and win. Now he's just getting hit, and and because he's so strong and resilient in a certain way, he wasn't getting knocked out, but it was uncomfortable to watch. And I winced at it, and I didn't think that the scorecards were wrong. I thought the scorecards were right. I make a case, despite Frank's protestations, that he got thoroughly beaten.
But Simon, do the promoters not have a moral obligation to say to their fighter, no, and no means no, it's time, it's enough?
Listen, I think that the promoters, not so much the promoters, but the managers, the guys that working for them, advising them, getting them the opportunities. Adam Morley, who's his manager and advisor, and has looked after him and earned him a lot of money as well, by the way. So he's done a great job with him, not taking that away from him. But I said to Adam, actually, listen, now is the time that you need to have that serious conversation. Simon's right in what he says. The fighter ultimately is the one that's going to make that decision. Remember Danny Williams, a guy who beat Mike Tyson all those years ago, still fighting up until last year, well in his 50s. I'd done the Commonwealth Games with him back in 1994, and he was losing on a regular basis against guys that are 1-0, 2-0. That's where he was at, and it was very sad to see. So only Joe Joyce will make that decision, but I think that the manager and the friend need to sit down and say, listen, Joe, this is where we're at. Because where is Joe Joyce sat right now? Where is he positioned? He was a guy that was one of the top names. We were talking about him beating Tyson Fury at one point. Now he's going to be used as a pawn for people like Moses Atoma who are coming through. And you go, do we want to see that? Is it necessary? No. I don't think it is. If he's financially secure, he's had a great run, he's clearly not at the top now, he's lost 4 of his last 5, the conversation needs to be had.
Spencer, well said. Mr. Simon Jordan, wonderful as always.
Thank you.
Thanking you. Go home and nurse that groggy throat, but you've been magnificent. Spencer, thanks as always, mate.
Thank you.
And it really is getting ramped up towards the 26th when Eubank Jr. goes in against Ben.